Single dad saw his boss on the doorstep. The doorbell rang at exactly 9:17 p.m. James Parker froze, a half-washed dinner plate still in his hands, soap suds dripping onto the kitchen floor. Nobody ever came to his door this late, especially not on a Tuesday. Through the thin walls of his modest apartment, he could hear his 7-year-old daughter Emma still humming to herself as she colored at the coffee table, blissfully unaware of the unexpected visitor. As he dried his hands on a dish rag, the doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. What he would discover on the other side of that door would change everything he thought he knew about his life, his future, and the woman he reported to every day at work. If you're enjoying this story so far, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more emotional and heartfelt stories that will touch your soul. Your support means everything to us. James had never considered himself particularly brave. At 34, he'd weathered storms that would have broken stronger men, losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago, raising Emma alone, working tirelessly as a mid-level marketing executive to keep their little world afloat. But nothing had prepared him for the sight of Catherine Wells, his normally composed and intimidating boss, standing on his doorstep with mascara-streaked cheeks and vulnerability radiating from her usually confident frame. "Catherine," he managed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is everything okay?" She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the dim porch light, and asked a question that would haunt him for months to come. "Am I beautiful, James?" The world seemed to stop spinning for a moment as he stood there, doorknob still clutched in his hand, trying to process the question from a woman who had never before shown a single crack in her polished exterior. "You are," he began, but the words that followed would set in motion a story neither of them could have anticipated. Catherine Wells had always been the epitome of professional success. At 41, she was the youngest chief marketing officer in the company's history, with a reputation for brilliance that was matched only by her apparent coldness. The office whispers painted her as the Ice Queen, a woman who had sacrificed everything personal for her career. James had worked directly under her for 2 years, admiring her from a professional distance while occasionally bearing the brunt of her exacting standards. What James didn't know, what nobody at Meridian Marketing knew, was that Catherine's carefully constructed facade had begun crumbling weeks ago when she received news that would shake anyone's foundation. Stage 2 breast cancer. The same disease that had taken James's wife. That Tuesday evening had been the culmination of a particularly brutal day. Catherine had sat alone in her doctor's office, receiving treatment options while scrolling through her phone contacts, realizing with a hollow ache that there wasn't a single person she felt comfortable calling. No husband. No children. Parents long deceased. Friends who had drifted away as she climbed the corporate ladder. Just colleagues who feared her and subordinates who resented her. Except, perhaps, for James Parker. The quiet, dedicated single father who somehow managed to produce exceptional work while never missing his daughter's school events. The man whose eyes held no judgment when she demanded revisions at 5 p.m. on a Friday. The employee who had once, when he thought she wasn't looking, defended her management style to complaining coworkers. "You are," James said again, finding his voice. "You are so much more than beautiful, Catherine." He stepped aside, opening his door wider. "Please, come in. Emma and I were just about to have some hot chocolate. I think we could all use some tonight." Emma looked up from her coloring book as Catherine entered, her small face lighting with curiosity. "Are you Daddy's friend from work? The one he says is super smart?" Catherine's eyes darted to James, who was suddenly very interested in the pattern of his worn carpet. "Yes, I am," she replied, her voice softer than James had ever heard it. "And you must be Emma. Your dad talks about you all the time." "He does?" Emma beamed. "He talks about you too. He says you're the strongest person he knows." James cleared his throat awkwardly. "Emma, why don't you go wash up while I make us all some hot chocolate?" As Emma skipped away, Catherine followed James to his small kitchen, watching as he moved efficiently through the familiar routine of heating milk and measuring cocoa powder. "I'm sorry for showing up like this," she finally said. "I don't even know why I'm here." James stirred the mixture slowly. Sometimes we don't need to know why. Sometimes we just need somewhere safe to fall apart for a little while. Catherine's carefully constructed walls began to crumble. I got some news today. Bad news. James set down the wooden spoon and turned to face her fully. Cancer? Her eyes widened. How did you? The look in your eyes, he said quietly. I've seen it before. In the mirror. And there, in James Parker's tiny kitchen, with cartoon magnets decorating the refrigerator and a child's artwork taped to the walls, Catherine Wells did something she hadn't done in 20 years. She cried. Not the controlled, dignified tears she had allowed herself in the doctor's office, but deep, body-racking sobs that seemed to come from somewhere primal and long buried. James didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her, holding her steady as the storm passed through her. He didn't offer empty platitudes or false reassurances. He simply held her, understanding in a way few others could what lay ahead. I don't have anyone, she whispered against his shoulder. I've spent my whole life building a career, and now I'm facing this alone. James pulled back slightly, looking directly into her eyes. You're not alone. Not anymore. Emma padded back into the kitchen, her small face serious as she observed the adults. Without a word, she walked over and wrapped her arms around Catherine's legs in a fierce hug. When my mommy got sick, hugs helped the most, she said matter-of-factly. Daddy says they're like medicine for the heart. Catherine looked down at the child, then at James, and felt something shift inside her, something fundamental and irreversible. That night marked the beginning of a journey none of them could have predicted. Catherine began her cancer treatments the following week, and against all office protocols and professional boundaries, James became her unexpected support system. He drove her to appointments when the side effects made it unsafe for her to drive herself. He created spreadsheets to track her medications and symptoms with the same attention to detail he brought to marketing campaigns. At work, they maintained their professional relationship, Catherine still demanding excellence, James still delivering it. But something had changed in the dynamic. The office began to notice small differences, Catherine asking about Emma during meetings, James bringing an extra coffee to Catherine's office without being asked, the occasional shared smile that seemed to contain a private understanding. For Emma, Catherine's presence in their lives brought an unexpected joy. The little girl who had lost her mother found in Catherine a different kind of female influence, one who taught her that women could be both strong and vulnerable, ambitious and kind. Catherine helped Emma with science projects, introduced her to books about pioneering women, and listened with genuine interest to her 7-year-old perspectives on life. But the journey wasn't without its complications. 6 weeks into Catherine's treatment, James found himself facing an impossible situation at work. The company was restructuring, eliminating positions, and as Catherine's direct report, he was expected to help identify team members for potential layoffs. The stress of balancing his professional responsibilities with his growing personal connection to Catherine began to take its toll. One evening, after Emma had gone to bed, Catherine arrived at his apartment with a folder of work documents. As they sat at his kitchen table reviewing spreadsheets, the conversation inevitably turned to the restructuring. The board is pushing for a 20% reduction in marketing personnel, Catherine said, her voice strained. They've made it clear that everyone is on the table except for department heads. James ran a hand through his hair. That's nearly 12 people from our team alone. I know. Catherine's fingers trembled slightly as she flipped through the personnel files. The chemotherapy had left her thinner, more fragile looking, though her mind remained as sharp as ever. I've been fighting it, but my position isn't as secure as it once was. The board sees my condition as a liability. James looked up sharply. They can't legally. They wouldn't say it outright, Catherine interrupted. But I've been in this business long enough to read between the lines. If I push too hard to protect the team, I might not have a position to come back to after my treatment. The weight of what she was saying hung heavy in the air between them. James reached across the table and took her hand, a gesture that would have been unthinkable months ago. "Then we'll figure it out together," he said firmly. "The team, your job, your health, all of it. One step at a time." Catherine looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. "Why are you doing all this, James? I was never kind to you before everything changed." James was quiet for a moment, considering his words carefully. "When Sarah, my wife, was sick, I learned something important. It's not about what people deserve based on their past actions. It's about what we all need as human beings. Connection. Support. Someone who sees us at our worst and stays anyway." Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "And you see me? I always have," he admitted softly. "Even when you were terrifying the entire marketing department." A laugh escaped her, surprising them both. "I wasn't that bad. You made Ted from graphic design cry. Twice. He deserved it. Those font choices were criminal." They laughed together, the tension breaking, and in that moment, something shifted again between them, something neither was ready to name but both could feel taking root. The following weeks brought new challenges. Catherine's treatment intensified, leaving her exhausted and ill. The company restructuring moved forward relentlessly. James found himself walking an increasingly difficult line between his professional obligations and his personal commitments. One particularly difficult day, after Catherine had been hospitalized briefly for treatment complications, James missed an important client presentation. His direct supervisor, not Catherine, who was on medical leave, called him into a meeting. "Parker, I understand you're in a unique situation with Catherine," the supervisor said, his discomfort evident. "But your performance is slipping. The Westridge presentation was a disaster, and your team is starting to question your leadership." James sat stiffly in the chair across from the desk. "I take full responsibility for the Westridge situation. It won't happen again. See that it doesn't." The supervisor leaned forward. "And James? Whatever is happening between you and Catherine, be careful. Office relationships are complicated enough without adding her health situation to the mix." "It's not like that," James protested automatically, though even as he said it, he wondered if that was still true. That evening, as he helped Emma with her homework, his phone buzzed with a text from Catherine. "Can you come over? Need to talk. Important." After arranging for his neighbor to watch Emma, James drove to Catherine's sleek downtown condo, a place that had once intimidated him with its minimalist design and obvious expense, but now felt familiar after many evenings spent bringing her dinner or helping her organize her medical paperwork. Catherine opened the door looking more energetic than she had in weeks. Her hair, which had thinned from the treatments, was covered with a stylish scarf, but her eyes were bright and alert. "I have news," she said, leading him to her living room. "The doctors say I'm responding well to treatment. Better than expected. They're cautiously optimistic." Relief flooded through James. "Catherine, that's wonderful." "There's more," she continued, her expression turning serious. "I've been doing a lot of thinking during all this. About my life. My choices. What matters." She took a deep breath. "I'm stepping down as CMO." James stared at her in shock. "What? But you've worked your entire career for that position." "And what has it gotten me?" she asked quietly. "A beautiful apartment where I sleep alone. Awards on my shelves but no photographs. Respect from colleagues but no one to call when I received the worst news of my life." She shook her head. "Until you." James sat beside her on the sofa, processing her words. "What will you do?" "The board has offered me a different role. Less demanding, more strategic. I'd be mentoring the next generation of marketing leaders instead of running the day-to-day operations." A small smile played at her lips. "Including a promotion for you, if you want it." "Me? Don't look so surprised, Parker. You've been doing half my job anyway these past months, all while taking care of Emma and... She hesitated, and me. The air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken words. Catherine, James began carefully, I need to be clear about something. Whatever happens with our careers, my support through your treatment isn't conditional. It never was. I know that, she said softly. That's why I trust you. Why I... She trailed off, looking away. James gently turned her face back toward him. Why you what? Why I've fallen in love with you, she whispered, the words clearly terrifying her. And why I can't let you sacrifice your career or your life for me. You and Emma deserve better than to be tied to someone who might still be facing an uncertain future. James felt his heart constrict. Is that what you think? That loving you would be a sacrifice? Wouldn't it be? I'm still in treatment. I'm older than you. I have no idea how to be a part of a family. I made Ted from graphic design cry. Twice. Despite the seriousness of the moment, James laughed. Catherine Wells, for a brilliant marketing strategist, you've completely misread this situation. Before she could respond, he leaned forward and kissed her, gently at first, then with growing certainty as she responded. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathless. I love you too, he said simply. And so does Emma. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I don't know how to do this. Any of this. Neither do I, James admitted. But I think that's how it works for everyone. We figure it out as we go. 6 months later, Catherine stood in James's small apartment, now their apartment, watching as Emma carefully arranged flowers in small vases. Her hair had begun growing back, short but determined, much like Catherine herself. The cancer was in remission, though regular checkups would be part of her life for years to come. Do you think we have enough food? Catherine asked, surveying the dining table laden with dishes. Your parents will be here in an hour, and I want everything to be perfect. James wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. They already love you, you know. The intimidating Catherine Wells, nervous about meeting her boyfriend's parents for dinner. Future in-laws, she corrected, holding up her left hand where a modest but elegant engagement ring caught the light. And I've negotiated billion-dollar deals with less anxiety. Emma looked up from her flower arranging. Grandma and Grandpa already told me they think Catherine is a vast improvement over your usual taste in women, James, she said, clearly quoting directly and making both adults laugh. The doorbell rang, and Emma raced to answer it, calling over her shoulder, that's probably Mrs. Abernathy from next door. She said she was bringing dessert. As Emma disappeared down the hallway, Catherine turned in James's arms to face him. Did you ever imagine, when I showed up on your doorstep that night, that we'd end up here? James brushed a strand of her short hair behind her ear. No. But I'm grateful every day that you found the courage to ask that question. Am I beautiful? Catherine remembered, shaking her head at her own vulnerability. I was such a mess. You are, James said, echoing his response from that night, but continuing this time without interruption, the most beautiful soul I've ever known. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Because you're brave enough to be vulnerable. Because you love my daughter like she's your own. Because you've shown me that second chances aren't just possible, they're worth fighting for. Catherine's eyes glistened with tears as she leaned forward to kiss him, both of them smiling against each other's lips as Emma's voice carried from the front door, Catherine. Daddy. Grandma and Grandpa are here early. And they brought presents. Hand in hand, they went to greet their future, both understanding that true beauty isn't found in perfection, but in the courage to be seen for exactly who you are, and loved not despite it, but because of it. In the end, it wasn't just Catherine who was beautiful. It was the life they were building together, unexpected, challenging, and more meaningful than any of them could have imagined on that fateful night when a doorbell rang at exactly 9:17 p.m. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content that celebrates love, second chances, and the beautiful complexity of human connections. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind us all of what truly matters in life.